One of the often overlooked, really important pieces of growing a business in a way that feels joyous is predictability. And this often gets overlooked, especially amongst coaches, although it can happen with consultants and agency owners as well. So I want to talk about predictability, why it matters, why it's so important. And then I'm going to share my 5 favorite ways to weave more predictability into business. Okay. So here's the thing. When you think about predictability, the first thing that comes to mind to me is nervous system regulation. When you don't know where your next client is going to come from and when they're going to come, it creates a lot of dysregulation in your nervous system, meaning you don't feel safe. You don't feel like you can trust in your business. You can't trust that the money is going to come in. You can't trust that the growth is going to happen. And so there isn't much lean back, relaxed feeling. It's like there's a lot of striving and hustling and trying because you don't know where that next dollar is coming from. And our nervous system really is the throttle on our business growth. So it's difficult to grow a business very far from a dysregulated place. And often we'll experience burnout and we'll experience health challenges because our body is having a reaction to being under that level of stress for so long. So we want to walk the joyous path to millions, not the stressed out, unpredictable, we might fall off a cliff at any moment path to millions. And the joyous path of to millions requires more predictability. And so the other piece of this with nervous system regulation is understanding that the reptilian part of our brain, the part of our brain that is responsible for our safety, keeping us alive. This is the part of our brain that makes sure that our body stays at the right temperature and that our heart beats and all of that kind of stuff. That part of our brain perceives anything different as being unsafe. And so that part of our brain does really well with evidence, with gradual changes, and with feeling like something is safe and something is normal, then it accepts it. And so there are ways that we can kind of trick that part of our brain, but understanding that there is this primal part of us that's like, nope, only this range is okay, right? And that makes a lot of sense with our body temperature. But of course, when we're thinking about growing our business, well, we don't want to stay in this range. We want to go further. But if you get a painful client one month that just kind of drops out of the sky and pays you, it's amazing. And there's a part of you that's celebrating and so happy for it. And the reptilian part of your brain was like, that's not safe. That's not normal. That's not reliable. We don't know when and if that's going to happen again. And so we're sort of putting that in a bucket over here, but we're not integrating it as something that happens to us all the time. So that leads me to my first favorite way to weave more predictability into business. And that is monthly recurring revenue. I love monthly recurring revenue. And, when we were building our agency to 7 figures, it wasn't like we went from, 20K months to 80 and 100K months. It was like we built up our retainers, we built up our book of clients. And so our MRR grew every month. And I wasn't starting the calendar month like, oh, it's August 1st, I'm at 0 and I need to get to 100K. It was like, it's August 1st. We already have, 70K in revenue that's going to come in from our current contracts. And we have this many clients in the pipeline. So if we close this many deals, we'll be at 100K. So you can feel how much more safety and predictability that creates knowing that the money is coming. So there's a few sort of practical ways that you can start to create more predictability through monthly recurring revenue. One is payment plans. So if you're selling everything based on pay in fulls, you might want to consider adding payment plans instead, so that you start to get used to getting that payment on the same day every month and knowing that it's coming in to support you. If you're doing a lot of one-off project-based work, can you start to create some ongoing packages so that rather than it, again, feeling like a one-off to your brain and feeling like a one-off to your nervous system, it starts to feel like something ongoing, and we can trust this, and this client pays every month, and every month we know that that money is coming. The other thing is automatic billing. So when we were initially running our agency, we would send invoices every month. And that created some unpredictability because some clients would pay right on time or would pay quickly, and others, it was drawn out and we didn't know when the payment was going to come. And so we switched everything over to automatic billing. Now, it's not every single client. And so if you're working with an agency, you'll find that, the bigger the clients you land, they may want terms, they may need their accounting team to review every invoice before it gets paid. But they're also the clients that are very unlikely to default on payments. They just have a process that they need to go through. So at this point with our agency, I think, 70 or 80% of clients are on automatic billing. So it's just like clockwork and it's very predictable. And then the others that aren't, they also always pay. And we have that history with them and that evidence built up, but there's slightly more unpredictability because you may not know the exact date that you're going to get paid. So favorite tip number one being monthly recurring revenue, and some of the ways that you can create that being payment plans, offer structure, and automatic billing. Okay. Tip number two is creating consistent funnels to enroll new clients. Now, based on your business model, this may look different, but it's important that how do I want to say this? It's difficult to create predictability when the way that clients are coming in is changing every time and there's nothing uniform about it. So in my coaching business, for example, it's like there's the kind of the money wound medicine funnel where often people start by taking the money wounds quiz. Then they'll get some emails, they get invited into the masterclass, and then a certain percentage will join money wound medicine. And they're on the same landing page, they're on the same checkout page, which I'm going to get to why that's important in my tip number 3. But it's like, it's predictable because this same pathway exists month over month over month. Likewise, in our agency, we do some LinkedIn outreach to the right kinds of businesses, and we know then what percentage of them are going to want to go deeper and further and then get on a call, and then what percentage of those turn into a proposal, and then how long they take to turn into a client. So there's this consistency of a funnel or a pipeline from taking someone that knows nothing about you and your business into potentially becoming a client. So that not only builds predictability, which will allow us to analyze data, and I'll talk about that in number 3, but it also, again, from like a nervous system and a safety perspective, doesn't feel like every month you're kind of starting from scratch and figuring out like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? It's like, there's this way, or there's this way, or there's this way. And we know that clients come in from those different ways, and we can use that to create safety in our nervous system. Tip number 3 is to look at your data. So once you have some of those consistent funnels in place, then it's like looking at it and noticing what's the normal amount of traffic that's coming to that landing page, or a normal number of people that are saying, yes, I'm curious to learn more. I'm giving different examples because obviously different sort of businesses will have different funnels. But you want to look at your data. You want to understand what's a normal amount of traffic, and then what's your average conversion rate on that, so that not only can you tweak it over time, but again, in our nervous system, it creates this predictability. So it's like, oh, okay, well, if I continue to send this much traffic, then I could expect this many clients to join. And so in that building of evidence, we can start to feel good about how much we're doing, and we're not constantly in striving mode. It's like, oh, well, I need to do this or about this much. And then I also get space to relax and trust and know that I have machinery in my business that's working on my behalf, and that it usually results in this many clients. And so you start to feel like, I do know where my next dollar is coming from. I do know where my next client is coming from. Now, tip number 4 is to study your energy cycles. And this is especially important if you were born with female biology, because women are cyclical beings. We cycle traditionally with the moon. We have a 28-day cycle in our bodies, menstrual cycle, and the moon impacts us with her cycle as well. And so sometimes we can experience that as feeling like we're unpredictable and we can't trust ourselves. We don't understand why sometimes we feel so ready to put ourselves out there, and we want to sell, and we want to make connections, and we want to network. And then seemingly in the next moment, it's like we're wanting to hermit or introvert, or not feeling very lit up by our business, not feeling as productive. When we start to understand our energy cycles, we look at them, we study them, we can actually find the predictability in our own rhythms. And for every woman's cycle, it's going to be different. And you may be more or less impacted by the moon. It may be more your own personal cycle, but just taking the time to start to observe and notice that, again, creates safety, and it helps us to know, like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling really introverted, and that's because it's the new moon, or I'm feeling really introverted and I'm about to start bleeding. That's totally normal for me, and it doesn't last. So it's like, can I just be introverted and more introspective and reflective for 3 or 4 days, knowing that the time will come back around when I'm feeling more productive and wanting to tackle my to-do list, or wanting to do more networking and be more extroverted again. Now, last tip number 5, is creating some masculine energy structure. So you can decide how much of this feels good to you. I don't like my business to feel so rigid that it's like I'm just checking boxes all the time, but I want enough structure that, again, so if I've noticed in the funnels that I've created and the data that I've observed in my business that if I show up on social media and post about 3 times a week, that usually gets 2,000 views, and that will turn into X number of clients or X amount of revenue, then I might want to have a little weekly checklist for myself. And there's 3 check boxes, one for each time that I show up on social media. And the business activities for you may look different in the ways that you're driving traffic. It might be podcast interviews. It might be doing Facebook Lives. It might be if I reach out to 20 aligned businesses on LinkedIn, then that gets me enough folks on calls or enough folks interested in my business that it'll result in the number of clients that I'm looking for. But whatever those leading indicators are, those leading activities that help fill these predictability funnels in your business, it's nice to have a little masculine energy structure in the way of a checklist or a to-do list or something that kind of helps keep your energy focused, so that you don't have to spend time in worry or over analyzing what's happening in your business and is it working or is it not working. it's like, oh, I don't have to think about what I need to do. Here it is. I've got a list. So let me do these things. And then I get to relax and trust and really sink into the joy of the joyous path to millions. I don't have to be scrambling and trying to get there as quickly as possible all the time. I get to do what I need to do. And then I get to relax and surrender and trust and experience all the joyful things along the way. So those are my 5 tips for weaving more predictability into your business. Your nervous system will thank you if you take even 1 or 2 of these and put them into action. So I trust that it has served you well. If you like my style and you're interested in doing more of this work together, I have limited spots available for one-on-one clients. And I really love doing this work one-on-one because then we get to dive into what each of these things looks like for your business. And we might be crafting new offers. We might be analyzing one of your funnels and kind of at that intersection of spirituality and strategy, really crafting this business in a way that it feels good to you and safe to you and also joyful and so lucrative and wealth building so that you can have your first $1 million year or you can hit whatever financial goals are meaningful to you. So thank you so much for tuning in and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.